Hi everyone, it's Allison Riley. I am going to talk to you about Gustave Courbet today. And Gustave Courbet was a 19th century French painter most known for realism. And realism means a sincere lover of the honest truth. He called himself a Republican, a socialist, a Democrat, but most of all, he was a realist. And he moved away from showing things that were ideal. So he's kind of the opposite of David in this respect, even though he studied under a man named Besançon, who was actually a pupil of David. But Courbet moves away from this, and one of the reasons why he moves away from this is the politics of the time. So if you guys remember our handy-dandy timeline of France, from 1830 to 1848, we have Louis Philippe I, who's king of the French, not king of France. And in 1848, we have the Second Republic, which is Louis Napoleon Bonaparte. And in 1852, Louis Napoleon Bonaparte declares himself emperor. And so this is the third and the final empire. And he calls himself Napoleon III, and Courbet pretty much hates Napoleon III, and that's important. So he's not going to follow the conventions of the government art because he's anti this government, and this is seen in his art, and it's also seen in his realism. His most famous quote is, "I have never seen angels. Show me an angel, and I will paint one." And this is because he painted from nature. Here's a picture of himself, and as you can see, he's kind of painted himself as the type of the bourgeois, not the bourgeois, the bohemian artist. And it's a little bit similar to Rembrandt in the style where his paint is like thick like Rembrandt's, but it's different where Rembrandt is a little bit more ideal, and Courbet shows the flaws in himself. So you can see this in this next painting, which is so this painting is one of his earlier portraits, and it was painted in 1843 and completed in 1845, and it's called The Desperate Man, or it's a self-portrait of the artist, and it's before he really developed his realist style. So it's still in the romantic style a little bit, where it's illustrating smooth lines and perfection of form of the romantic school of painting. As a method of self-promotion and advertisement, Courbet made an impression with his self-portraits, and he used them to find his own artistic style, and this made him more confident. And so now we're moving to realism, and realism was created by critic Champfleury, which Dr. Weingarten will talk to you about on Thursday, in 1847. And Courbet became the leader of this school, and his aim was to convey morals, ideas, and an image of the time according to my own judgment, not only as a painter but as a man in a world to create living art. And so, as I said before, he wanted to show morals in his painting, but he also was kind of wanted to be a little bit shocking, as we can see in this painting. And so this pretty explicit painting is called The Origin of the World, and it was painted in 1866, and it's obviously a close-up view of a woman's genitals and abdomen, and it emphasizes the eroticism of the work. And so the painting was actually it was obviously going to disturb its owners, and it was bought by a Turkish diplomat living in Paris who also owned the Turkish bath by Ang. And he actually had this painting behind another landscape, so it was hidden from view. And the woman on the bottom with the red hair is Joanna Heffernan, also known as Jo, and she was a friend of Courbet, and she is supposedly the model for this painting. And so there's a painting of Jo by Courbet as well, of her face. But during the 19th century, the display of the nude body underwent a revolution. So the main activists of these were Courbet and Manet, which we'll see soon. Courbet rejected academic painting and its smooth, idealized nudes, but he also directly wanted to show the hypocritical social conventions of the Second Empire, where eroticism and even pornography were acceptable in mythological paintings, but they weren't acceptable in these kind of like realist paintings. And so the painting obviously still shocks and triggers viewers to this day. So you can just imagine how shocking it was. And also, again, it's not idealized. The woman is pretty clearly not the ideal. You have hair. You have this fairly odd viewpoint. So just a little. We're gonna get to realism in a second. I'm gonna go back to that, but that past painting is in the Musée d'Orsay, and it's one of his most famous paintings. That the Barrel of Renan and the Stonebreakers are pretty much his most famous works. So realism had its scandals, obviously, as we just saw, but that wasn't even the biggest scandal were Burial at Ornan, the Village Girls, and the Bathers. And because he steered away from polite realism, like he wasn't polite about it. He showed things the way they were, and he wanted to have a moral message and a political message in his painting. And so people were terrified of realism because it might stir another uprising. I mean, there's been so many revolutions and government overthrows, and when you're showing the working class in a not great light, that usually shows that there's some political disturbances going on. So he was born in Ornan in 1819, and so here's like the region, and this is important because this is the setting of most of his paintings: A Burial at Ornan, Dinner at Ornan, The Village Girls, which we'll talk about all these a little bit later. But he did go to Paris, and at first he studied law, and then he became a painter. But he goes back to Ornan, and that's important because we're moving away from the city, and he keeps getting. And when he was in Paris, he visited the Louvre, and he looked at 17th century Dutch painters, which is why you're going to see, like we saw, his painting was a little bit similar to Rembrandt's. And his landscapes are going to be similar to 17th century Dutch painters. So he did have some academic training, but he rejected this for his own style. That became a very popular style, and a popular style in the history of art. It wasn't that popular at the time. He was severely criticized. Everyone was calling his work ugly. Like I said before, he was seen as almost like a troublemaker, where he is going against the government. Napoleon III keeps trying to get him on his side, and it really does not work out. He refuses. And one thing that's interesting about Courbet really pays attention to types. As I said before, he's a political painter. And so as we can see in The Meeting, which was painted in 1854, we have Courbet on the right, and he is portraying himself as the artist. We have a man in the middle who is bourgeois, and he is one of Courbet's patrons, and he has taken off his glove to shake Courbet's hand. Courbet has not returned this gesture because the man is on Courbet's turf. And so then the manservant we can see is of a lower class because although he's wearing a suit, it's ill-fitting. It's not as tailored as the man in green. And so this shows that in the 19th century, the clothes make the man. And so people are really trying to classify each other with certain clothes. And Courbet is really showing this in his works. And also, he is the painter, so he gets to decide how he wants to portray himself, which is an important idea. And in 1849, Courbet painted After Dinner at Ornan. Remember, Ornan was where he was from. And this is a huge canvas. And Courbet was able to finalize his dream of painting a large-scale composition that would cement his reputation. So he was looking at history painting, but he was looking at painting the modern life, the everyday life as he saw it as a history painting. And so this painting is really similar to Caravaggio's Calling of St. Matthew, and it shows that Courbet owed a lot to the tradition of realistic French painting, but but he presented the image of country life as once serene, reassuring, musical, and it gave him his first success in the salon when he exhibited at the 1849 salon. And it shows Courbet's father to the left, along with 3 regular visitors to the household. And so the painting implies a strongly rural atmosphere, and it was purchased by the French state, and it won him a gold medal at the salon, which meant that he didn't need to submit his paintings to the jury. And so now we have another really famous work of Courbet's, The Stonebreakers, painted in 1849. Sadly, it was destroyed in Dresden in World War II. But the Stonebreakers, here we can see the artist's concern for the plight of the poor. There are 2 figures who are laboring over removing the stone from a road that's being built. And so in our age of jackhammers and bulldozers, such work is reserved for punishment. And we can't see their face. We can't see their humanity. We can only see like the ugliness. We can see their torn clothing and their breathtaking work. And Dr. Weingarten is going to talk to you more about this on Thursday. But Pierre-Joseph Proudhon was a French politician and a founder of philosophy. He was a socialist, and his version of it was the Stonebreakers is an irony addressed to our industrial civilization, which every day invents marvelous machines to work, sow, mow, harvest, thresh the grain, grind it, knead, spin, weave, sew, etc., etc., etc. So they have only one fault. They do not go into motion themselves, but they need someone to watch over them and control them and even to serve them. Who then is the servitor of this machine? Man. Man-serf. This is the latest term of modern industrialization. And so also in this work, if you look at the composition, you have these 2 workers who are on a hill, and these laborers suggest that they're physically and socioeconomically trapped by their work. And like the stones themselves, Courbet's brushwork is really rough, more so than it might be expected in the mid-19th century. And so this suggests the way that the artist painted his canvas was in part conscious rejection of the highly polished neoclassicist style that was popular before 1848. So at the end of the summer in 1849, Courbet started work on his first monumental painting, and he wanted to make this a statement, because remember, he is political. And he took inspiration from group portraits of Dutch civic guards in the 17th century, and there's a lot of black, which almost recalls like a Spanish style. And so Courbet's approach was he wanted to make a monumental history painting, except that his history painting shows ordinary, ugly subjects. And so as you can see, there are like priests with bulbous nose, there are haggard women, and the priests almost look drunk. So you're showing like this not ideal version of society, just this regular version of society. And it's almost a critique on society because it shows the ugliness of it all. And there's like impasto brushwork, there's fragmentation. It's physically coarse, and the subject matter is coarse. And so Champfleury thought that the ugliness is not exaggerated. So as we can tell by now, Courbet's career is punctuated with scandal. He does not do things at the norm. He wanted to create this new style of painting, this realist painting. But remember that his realism is still from his perspective. So he still is putting his artistic license on it, even though he's making these non-ideal types. And so this is seen again in The Young Women from the Village, and which was submitted to the Salon of 1852, and it, of course, got more controversy. And again, Courbet's work was seen for ugliness, but also this painting shows his 3 sisters and in the countryside in 1848, and this is in the democratic uprisings after 1848. And so you can see that there's a kind of a blurring of class boundaries here with the 3 women who are talking, and his Ornan subjects unsettled his Parisian audience at the salons, and they really didn't like it. And so when it was exhibited, it was bitterly attacked. And remember, it was exhibited in 1852, and people found it tasteless, clumsy, berated the common features, the countrified costumes of the 3 girls, the ridiculous little dog and cattle, and the painting's overall lack of unity, including traditional perspective and scale. And ironically, these are the very effects that Courbet worked hardest to achieve, and so these are the ones that his critics found the most problematic. The painting actually initiated a series of pictures devoted to the lives of women, and it showed Courbet's three sisters out for a walk in the communal, which was a small village near a small valley near his village of Ornan. And again, it was painted between 1851 and 1852. And now we have the Painter's Studio, which is kind of a powerful political manifesto. It's almost an autobiography of the painter, where the artist occupies the center stage and society is divided in this painting. And we have Napoleon as part of the trivial part of the painting, and he is seen as a poacher with his gun. So remember, we're going to go back to the politics of the time right now. And he is an ardent opposer of Napoleon III. And Napoleon's half-brother tried to convert Courbet to the new regime. He couldn't because Courbet saw himself as Napoleon's rival. And he agreed with Proudhon, where he said, to be governed is to be watched. And so he actually turned down the title of the Legion of Honor in 1870 because he said the state is incompetent in the matters of art. And so, unfortunately, in 1871, he is arrested, but Dr. Weingarten will talk to you about Courbet's politics a little bit more on Thursday, and also how that relates to both his criticism and also there were like lots of cartoons and caricatures going on at the time that Dr. Weingarten will bring up. But this enormous studio scene is without a doubt Courbet's most mysterious painting. He basically divided on the but in those on the right, you see Courbet's supporters. So you have the critic Champfleury, he's seated on a stool. You have Baudelaire absorbed in a book. The couple in the foreground personify art lovers. And on the side of everyday life, on the left, you find a priest, a merchant, a hunter that looks like Napoleon, poverty, and in the middle, you have Courbet. And he's flanked by benevolent figures of a female nurse who's naked like the truth, a child, and a cat. And so you have the painter Courbet placing himself in the middle, and he thinks he is the mediator between these two kind of sets of people. And as we know, Courbet is a pretty confident guy, and Courbet does his thing. So he's going to present himself as pretty great figure. So in 1855, we have our Painter's Studio, a real allegory summing up a 7-year phase of my artistic life, and this is in the Musée d'Orsay. If you guys are ever in Paris, you can go see lots of Courbets. There's also a lot in the Met in New York. But he submitted this to the Exposition Universelle, and it was rejected. And so Courbet retaliated by mounting his own exhibition in the Pavilion of Realism. And this was within sight of the exhibition. And he displayed this among other works, and including, I believe, his burial at Ornan. And so this is really important because now we have our first one-man show. And we have our one-man show that's being allowed to show this almost controversial art to the public, to the masses. And the accompanying exhibition catalog included Courbet's seminal Realist Manifesto, which is one of your primary readings. Read this manifesto, in which he proclaimed his fidelity to his subjects drawn from modern life. So he's showing modern life. He's showing his version of history, realistic modern life, the grittiness, and it was rejected by the Academy, basically, because it's like anti-academic painting. And he's showing it to the people of modern life. And our last painting is painted in 1853, and it is Courbet's The Bathers. And so this is probably one of the best examples of Courbet's non-classical treatments of the nude. As you can see, the woman is not the ideal body type. And So they were rendered naturally and they weren't idealized. Actually, almost very like Rembrandt-like. Um, where the painting was poorly received, Delacroix said there is no excuse for these naked and fat bourgeois buttocks and meaningless gestures. But rather than being negative, the attention was actually pretty good publicity, and Courbet sold the work despite the criticisms. But um, but the important part is that it's not ideal. It's realistic, and um, so you can see it's almost like showing even more grotesque parts of the woman than would even be seen in a photograph. Another thing is that painting The Bathers, 1853, it's 8 feet tall, so it is enormous. So one thing we also want to pay attention is Courbet's painting style. He does layers of paint, and he loves his palette knife. There's a link in the PowerPoint to a video by the Getty Museum in LA about how Courbet paints, and it really shows you how you do all these different layers of paint to get this kind of like crustiness where his subject matter is not ideal, his paint is not ideal, it's not smooth. He's not going to sugarcoat anything for you, and because remember, realism is you're not afraid to show honesty, you're not afraid to show ugliness, you're showing reality. So here's that link to the YouTube video, but I also, I wanted to just kind of reinstate important parts about realism. And Courbet is political, and he actually enters the political arena on the eve of the Paris Commune of 1871, where he played. Here's just a better picture for me to give you a little bit more political history for Courbet. Courbet is arrested in 1871. After he is arrested, he wants to save the arts of the nation. He is elected president of the Federation of the Artists in 1871, and his intention is to give artists total freedom. For Courbet, a utopian society is the ideal society. And so he's part of this like new socialist government, but the government only lasts for 73 days. And in this time, there's some destruction to the column in the Place Vendôme. I don't know if you've been to Paris, but it's kind of like where the Ritz is. And so he's forced to pay, and he can't pay, and he's afraid he's going to be persecuted again. So he flees to Switzerland, and sadly, he tries to return to France, but he doesn't. And he said he wanted artists to be. He realized his utopian vision was not going to work. And he had believed it in order to try and save the world through art. But sadly for Courbet, it didn't work. But because of his realism, he became a pioneering figure for modernism. And so he really paved the way to kind of go against the academy and do something new. Also, he has political agendas. So let's just quickly go over some Courbet facts. He is a realist. He's trying to show truth. He's not idealizing his subject matter. He's also not idealizing his paint. His paint is coarse, and you can see the brush strokes, and it's layered. A lot of his scenes take place in Ornans, which is where he was born. Parisian society is having problems with him showing these underclass people with in not the best light. Courbet also shows types, and by types I mean he shows different classes in his paintings. And Courbet, he goes against the academy, and he considers himself a rival of Napoleon III. And these are the most important points about Courbet, and good luck studying Courbet. All right, bye guys.